Hello and welcome back to Revenge Handler. I'm Mike, and I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today I have a story for you from the pros. I know you're going to enjoy it. Let's go ahead and jump right in. This story comes to us from Reddit, and I have to warn you, the man who destroyed this family wasn't a stranger. He was the man this father had walked down the aisle. After you hear this one, I want you to drop a rating in the comments out of 10. How good is this revenge? Let's see what everyone thinks. If you're new here, hit subscribe. Revenge Handler is built for people who believe that karma always finds its way. And save Revenge Handler. Bookmark it, because when a betrayal comes to you, and it will, you'll want to know exactly how to handle it. That's what we're here for. I found out on a Tuesday, not because anyone told me, not because I was snooping. I found out because I went back to get my wedding ring. I'd taken off 3 months earlier and left it on the kitchen counter the morning my wife and I agreed we were done. I didn't want any more, but I also didn't know what to do with it, and it had just sat there a week before we were supposed to sign the papers. I drove back to the house to collect a few last things. She wasn't supposed to be home. Neither was he. But the car in the driveway wasn't hers. It was my son-in-law's. I stood on the front step for probably 30 seconds before I understood what I was looking at. Not because I'm slow. Because the mind will fight you when the truth is too ugly to accept on the first pass. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation. I told myself he'd come to pick something up for my daughter. I told myself a lot of things in those 30 seconds that I don't believe anymore. Then I heard them through the window I'd left cracked open every morning for 22 years. And there it was, the worst moment of my life, and I hadn't even lost my marriage yet. I walked back to my car, sat down, and I thought, before I do a single thing, I need to know exactly what I have. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I was married for 22 years to a woman I genuinely loved for most of them. We met in our late 20s, built something real, a house, a business together, a daughter we raised into someone we were both proud of. Her name is Kara. She's sharp, kind, stubborn in a good way. When she brought home the man she said she wanted to marry, I shook his hand, and I meant it. His name was Derek. Derek was 31 when he married Kara. He was the kind of man who was good at being liked. Good looking in a way that made him relaxed about it. Confident without being arrogant. Easy with people. The kind of guy who could walk into any room and inside of 10 minutes have everyone believing they'd always known him. My wife thought he was wonderful. Said so constantly. Said Kara had done well. I liked him. I want to be honest about that, because what comes next doesn't make sense unless you understand that I genuinely liked the man. I played golf with him. I had him over for dinners. I helped him when he and Carr were looking to buy their first house. Co-signed on a loan because his credit wasn't quite there yet, and I trusted him completely. Let me say that again. I co-signed on his mortgage because I trusted him with everything I had. My marriage was falling apart in that same period. Quietly, the way marriages do when both people are too tired to fight anymore. Sandra and I had been drifting for years. Different rhythms, different priorities, different versions of what we wanted the next chapter to look like. I hung up and ordered another coffee. Then I started thinking about Derek. Because here's the part that was eating me alive. It wasn't just that my wife had betrayed me. My marriage was over. I'd accepted that. What I could not accept, what was sitting in my chest like a stone I couldn't dislodge, was Derek, a man I had welcomed, a man my daughter loved and trusted, a man who had sat across from me at dinner tables and asked me how I was holding up through the separation while sleeping with my wife. The audacity of it, the cold, calculated, smiling audacity of it. And Cara didn't know any of it. That was the weight I was carrying when I drove home that night. Not just what had been done to me, what had been done to my daughter. I spent the next 4 days building a case. I was calm about it. That surprised me. I'd always assumed that if I were ever in a situation like this, I would come apart. I didn't. I think when betrayal is large enough, it bypasses grief and goes straight to clarity. I wasn't angry in the messy, unfocused way. I was angry in the way that sharpened things. First, I hired a private investigator. Not because I doubted what I'd heard. I knew what I'd heard. But because I needed documentation. I needed dates. I needed evidence that would hold up if Sanders' attorneys tried to call me a liar. The PI did his job. He had photos within 48 hours. Multiple visits. Multiple days. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been going on for weeks. Possibly longer. Second, I called my attorney and told her everything. We met in person. I laid out the photos, the dates, the timeline. She went quiet for a moment and then said, "You were very close to leaving a significant amount of money on the table." I told her I was aware of that. We began rewriting our approach to the settlement. Third, and this was the part one lost the most sleep over, I thought about Kara. I could have waited. I could have handled the legal side first, gotten what I needed, and then decided whether and how to tell my daughter that her husband was sleeping with her mother. There was an argument for that. Clean, surgical, keep it contained. But every time I ran that argument in my head, I saw Kara's face. Kara, who called me every Sunday. Kara, who had asked me the week before how I was really doing. Kara, who deserved to know who she was sleeping next to every night. Subscribe if you believe the score always gets settled. Because it does. Not always fast. Not always clean. But it does. The plan was in motion. The legal position was being rebuilt. The evidence was secured. There was only one thing left to do, and it was the thing I had been dreading most. Not because I was afraid of what would happen to Derek, because I was afraid of what it would do to Kara. I picked up the phone and called my daughter. She didn't believe me at first. That's the honest answer, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. She went quiet in the way people go quiet when their brain is working too hard to form words. Then she said very carefully, "Dad, are you sure?" I told her I was sure. I told her I had documentation. I told her I was sorry. She said she needed to call me back. She called back 40 minutes later. She had confronted Derek. He denied it. Of course he denied it. He told her I was a bitter man trying to burn everything down on his way out. He told her I was fabricating a story to get leverage in the divorce. He held her hands. She told me this later, and he looked her in the eyes and he lied to her face. But Kara is her mother's daughter in one way, and her father's daughter in another. Her mother's daughter means she feels things deeply. Her father's daughter means she doesn't stop until she has the truth. She went through his phone while he was in the shower. She found everything, not just the messages with Sandra, the photos, the plans they'd made, the things they'd said to each other that she described to me later in a voice I'd never heard her use before, flat, like something behind her eyes had switched off. She called me back a second time. This time she didn't say much. She just said, "What do we do?" I told her. We finished what they started. The photos from the private investigator went to my attorney the following morning. The new settlement proposal went to Sanders' attorney that same afternoon. The terms were no longer equitable. They reflected what our state's law reflected. Adultery, documented. During the legal period of the marriage, the house was no longer being split 50-50. The business was no longer being split 50-50. The math had changed entirely. Sanders' attorney called mine with Kara filed for divorce from Derek the same week. He tried to fight it. He tried to tell people, their friends, mutual family, that it was all a misunderstanding, that the photos were taken out of context. I don't know what context he thought would help him. He hired an attorney. The attorney presumably told him what the attorney saw when he reviewed the situation, because within 2 weeks Derek had stopped contesting and was looking for somewhere to live. He lost the house I had co-signed on, the house I had put my name to because I had trusted him. Drop your rating in the comments out of 10 and share this one with someone who needs it today, because this is what it looks like when someone takes back everything they were owed. Kara is doing better. Not good. I won't tell you a story where everyone heals cleanly and quickly, because that's not how it works. She's in therapy. She's angry. She's sad in a way that lives right beneath the surface of everything she does. But she's clear. She's not confused about who did this or why. And she told me, a few months after all of it was over, that the worst thing would have been not knowing, that watching me walk away from the settlement, leaving them both standing in something they built together in secret, that would have destroyed her more slowly and more completely than the truth ever could. I thought about that for a long time. The truth is, I didn't set out to destroy anyone. I set out to stop being destroyed. There's a difference. Sandra made her choice. Derek made his. All I did was make sure those choices came with their full weight. That's not revenge. That's just the math of actions and consequences catching up. But I'll be honest with you. Watching Derek load boxes into a rental car outside a house he no longer owned, driving away from a marriage he had torched while wearing the face of a man I had trusted, that felt like justice. And justice felt exactly like what was supposed to feel like. Save revenge handler. Not for today. For the day someone gives you a reason to use it. Because when that day comes, and for some of you it's already here, you need to know that the score can be settled. That patience and documentation and a clear head are more powerful than anything else you've got. That's what Revenge Handler is for. And this story is proof of exactly that.